In the crowded streets of Manila, a young girl named Maria Santos lived in a tiny house made of tin and wood, surrounded by the sounds of jeepneys, street vendors, and children playing in the alleyways. Her mother sold fish balls and rice meals by the roadside while Maria helped her after school. They didn't have much, just love, hope, and a small old radio that played songs from all over the world. Every night, Maria would sit by that radio, close her eyes, and sing along. Her voice was soft but carried a strength that made even the neighbors pause. Music was her escape from the hunger and hardship that shadowed her family. One day, while helping her mother sell food, Maria saw a TV through a shop window playing America's Got Talent. She froze. She saw people singing, dancing, and making the judges smile. She watched Simon Cowell press the golden buzzer, and confetti rained down over someone's dream. Her heart raced, and she whispered to herself, "One day, that will be me." Her friends laughed when she told them about her dream. They said, "You can't even afford shoes, how will you go to America?" But Maria didn't stop believing. She sang in the church choir and local events, often barefoot, wearing the same old dress. One evening, after a small performance, an old musician approached her and said, "Your voice can move mountains, don't stop singing." Those words stayed with her. Maria's mother, seeing her daughter's passion, started saving coins secretly from her earnings. Her father, who had left to work abroad years ago, called one night after hearing about her dream. "Maria, chase it," he said. "Even if the world laughs, chase it." Months later, with the little money her family could gather, Maria held a one-way ticket to Los Angeles. Her mother hugged her tightly, tears falling as she whispered, "Make us proud, Anik." Maria packed her small backpack, just a few clothes, a photo of her family, and a tiny microphone toy she'd had since childhood. As the airplane took off, she pressed her hand to the window, praying silently. She didn't know what awaited her, but she knew she had to try. Landing in Los Angeles felt like stepping into another world. The city lights, tall buildings, and fast cars overwhelmed her. She could barely understand the accents, and her money ran out faster than she expected. She found a cheap hostel in downtown LA and shared a room with strangers from different countries. Every morning, she practiced singing quietly in a park nearby, scared someone might tell her to stop. She missed home terribly but told herself she couldn't give up now. She watched videos of past AGT winners on her phone and imagined herself on that big stage. The day of the auditions came sooner than she thought. She woke up before sunrise, put on her cleanest dress, though faded and patched, and took a bus to the venue. The line outside was endless. People wore fancy clothes, carried instruments, and talked confidently about their managers and producers. Maria stood quietly, holding her audition number with trembling hands. Some people stared at her worn shoes and whispered, but she looked down and prayed softly, "Lord, please give me courage." Hours passed before she finally reached the entrance. A security guard looked at her suspiciously and asked, "Are you lost, sweetheart?" She smiled nervously and showed her paper. "I'm here to audition, sir." He looked surprised but let her in. Inside the theater, she could hear faint laughter, clapping, and the echo of voices from contestants rehearsing. Backstage, she watched as others performed amazing tricks and powerful songs. She felt her stomach twist in fear. For a moment, she thought of leaving, of just walking out and pretending this dream never existed. But then she remembered her mother's face, her father's voice, and the people who doubted her. She touched her little toy microphone in her pocket and whispered, "You belong here, Maria." When they finally called her number, she took a deep breath, stepped onto the bright stage, and looked out at the massive audience and the judges' table. The lights blinded her, but she stood tall. She didn't know what would happen next, but she knew this was her moment to fight for her dream. When Maria stepped onto the America's Got Talent stage, her hands trembled, and her heart pounded so loud she could almost hear it over the crowd's quiet murmur. The judges looked at her curiously. Simon Cowell leaned forward with his familiar skeptical look, while Heidi Klum smiled softly as if trying to encourage her. Simon spoke first, "Hello. What's your name, and where are you from?" Maria swallowed hard and replied, "My name is Maria Santos, and I'm from the Philippines." Her accent was thick, but her voice carried warmth and sincerity. Simon nodded. "And what are you going to sing for us today?" Maria smiled nervously and said, "I will sing, 'Rise Up,' by Andra Day." It's for my mom, who taught me never to give up. There was a small wave of polite applause, but many people in the crowd seemed unsure. Her clothes were simple, her shoes old, and her nervousness was obvious. The music started, and the first notes came out soft and shaky. A few people in the audience exchanged glances, expecting her to fail. Then something magical happened. When she hit the chorus, her voice transformed. It was pure, powerful, and full of emotion. It echoed through the theater with such honesty that the crowd went silent, completely captivated. Her voice carried pain, hope, and strength all at once, like she was singing every struggle she'd ever lived through. Heidi's eyes began to water, and Sofia Vergara whispered, "She's incredible." Simon sat still, his expression slowly changing from doubt to amazement. When Maria reached the final high note, she sang it with tears streaming down her face. The last word hung in the air for a moment before the entire room exploded into applause. People stood, clapping and cheering louder than she'd ever imagined possible. Maria covered her mouth in disbelief, shaking as she looked at the sea of faces cheering for her. Simon leaned into the microphone and said, "Maria, when you first walked out, I didn't know what to expect. But you've just given us one of the most emotional performances we've seen this season. You're not just a singer, you're a storyteller." Heidi added, "You made me cry. You sang from your soul." Howie smiled and said, "You reminded us why we love this show." Maria couldn't stop crying as she whispered, thank you so much." She turned to leave the stage, thinking it was over, but then the crowd began chanting, "Golden buzzer. Golden buzzer." Over and over. Simon looked around at the audience, then back at Maria, his eyes soft. "You came here with nothing but a dream," he said slowly, "and sometimes, dreams deserve to come true." He slammed the golden buzzer. In an instant, golden confetti burst into the air, raining down around her as the music swelled. Maria dropped to her knees, covering her face in disbelief. The crowd screamed, and the judges stood up, clapping. Simon walked up to the stage to hug her, saying, "You earned this moment." Tears streamed down her cheeks as she said through sobs, "This is for my mom. This is for my family back home." The camera zoomed in on her shaking hands and tear-streaked face. It was the kind of moment that would live forever in AGT history. Back in the Philippines, her mother watched the livestream on an old phone, crying with pride as neighbors gathered around to celebrate. That night, Maria became an overnight sensation. Her video was uploaded to YouTube and gained millions of views in hours. The world fell in love with her story, a poor Filipino girl who flew across the ocean and stunned everyone with her voice. Reporters wanted interviews, fans filled her social media with love and encouragement, and people called her, the voice of hope. But behind all the excitement, Maria stayed humble. She spent the night alone in her tiny hostel room, replaying the moment in her head, still unable to believe it was real. She whispered a prayer of thanks and promised herself she would work harder than ever. For the first time in her life, Maria felt like the world had finally seen her, not as a poor girl from the slums, but as a singer, a dreamer, and a symbol of hope for millions of people who still believed in miracles. Fame came faster than Maria ever imagined, but it also brought challenges she never expected. After her golden buzzer moment, her life completely changed. She was invited to interviews, radio shows, and fan events. People recognized her on the streets, asking for selfies and autographs. Yet behind the smiles, she felt pressure building inside her. The next round, the semi-finals, was coming, and she knew everyone was expecting something even bigger than her first performance. The other contestants had vocal coaches, stylists, and entire teams supporting them. Maria only had herself and a few kind staff members who believed in her. During rehearsals, her voice cracked several times, and she started to doubt herself. Some online comments began to appear, saying things like, "She's not that good," or, "The golden buzzer was pity." Those words cut deep. She stayed up late at night reading them until her eyes burned. The fear of disappointing everyone grew heavier by the day. One evening, while sitting alone on a park bench near her hostel, Maria took out her phone and watched her golden buzzer video again. Seeing her past self so full of hope reminded her why she came. She wiped her tears and whispered, "You didn't come this far to give up now." The next morning, she went to rehearsal early, determined to push through. Her chosen song for the semi-finals was "Fight Song" by Rachel Platten. It wasn't just a performance, it was her story. When the night arrived, she stood backstage, shaking. Simon noticed her nervousness and said quietly, "You have nothing to prove, Maria. Just sing from your heart again." Those words gave her the courage she needed. The lights dimmed, and as the music began, Maria closed her eyes and sang like she was fighting every obstacle that had ever tried to break her. Her voice soared higher and stronger than ever before, filled with emotion, passion, and raw power. The audience was on their feet even before she finished. Heidi was crying again, Sophia covered her mouth in awe, and Simon gave one of his rare standing ovations. When the crowd finally calmed down, Simon said, "You've proved every single person wrong who ever doubted you." That was perfection. Maria's face glowed with pride and relief as she whispered, "Thank you so much." When the results were announced later that night, she was voted into the grand finale. She fell to her knees, overcome with emotion, while the audience chanted her name. The night of the finale came faster than she expected. For the first time, Maria was performing an original song she had written herself called, "Home is in My Heart." The lyrics told her story, from the streets of Manila to the stage of America's Got Talent. It spoke about faith, love, and the belief that home isn't a place but the people you carry in your heart. Backstage, she held her lucky toy microphone and whispered, "For you, Mama." As she walked onto the stage, the theater went silent. The lights dimmed, and a soft melody began to play. Her voice started gentle, filled with emotion, telling her journey through every note. Then the song built into a powerful chorus that sent chills through the audience. Every word felt like a prayer, every breath like hope reborn. When the song ended, the theater exploded with cheers, and the judges stood again. Simon's eyes glistened as he said, "Maria, you are what this show is all about, a dreamer who turned her struggle into something beautiful." Heidi added, "You already won our hearts." When the final votes came in, Maria didn't win first place, but the applause for her was louder than for anyone else. As she hugged the winner, Simon leaned toward her and whispered, "This is just the beginning for you." After the show, record labels reached out to her, and soon she signed her first music deal. She began performing at concerts, charity events, and TV shows around the world. Back in the Philippines, her mother watched every performance with tears in her eyes. Months later, Maria returned home with flowers and a set of house keys. "We have our own home now, Mama," she said, her voice trembling with joy. Her mother hugged her tightly and whispered, "You made us proud." Maria smiled and looked up at the sky, feeling peace for the first time in her life. She knew she hadn't just chased a dream, she had caught it, and it was shining brighter than ever.